they shall not pass.
It is a heavy phrase, isn't it?
It really is. It feels cinematic, like something you'd hear in a trailer for I don't know, a high-budget fantasy epic right before the hero makes a last stand.
Right, on a bridge against a horde of monsters. It has that kind of scripted Hollywood quality to it.
Exactly. It sounds like a screenwriter came up with it to make the audience cheer.
Well, what's so fascinating about the research we have today is that, reality is often much better written than fiction. Because this is not a line from a movie. It's arguably the most recycled, repurposed, and powerful forward slogan in modern military history.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. We're going to trace the biography of this one single sentence.
Yeah.
We're looking at its origins, its strange evolution, and honestly, the surprising global journey of on ne passe pas, as it's probably more famous, the Spanish version.
No pasarán.
No pasarán.
And the stack of notes we have is, it's massive. We are jumping all over the timeline. We're going from the muddy trenches of World War I to the streets of London in the 1930s.
And then to revolutionary Nicaragua in the 80s.
All the way up to the current conflict in Ukraine, right now in 2024.
It's a wild genealogy. We're going to figure out how a desperate order given by a French general in a dugout in 1916 somehow becomes the favorite chant of anti-fascists in the UK, communist revolutionaries in Central America, and modern mechanized brigades in Eastern Europe.
It's really a case study in how an idea survives. It's not just about the words. It's about the psychology of that line in the sand.
Yeah.
The sheer human refusal to yield.
Okay, so let's get our boots muddy. We need to go back to the source. Now, most people I talk to, if they know the phrase at all, they connect it to the Spanish Civil War. But that's not where it was born, is it?
No, that's where it got famous, you could say. That's where it went viral, to use a modern term. But the birth is arguably much, much grimmer. We have to go back to 1916, the Western Front, the Battle of Verdun.
Verdun, World War I. Often called the meat grinder.
And that name wasn't an exaggeration. Verdun was the longest battle of the entire war. The German strategy was, it was explicitly to bleed France white.
Wow.
They attacked a point they knew the French would defend to the last man, essentially just trying to attrition the French army right out of existence.
So the stakes are literally national survival.
Completely. And into this meat grinder steps General Robert Nivelle. Now, historians have a lot of mixed opinions on Nivelle later in the war. He's a bit of a controversial figure.
Right.
But at Verdun, he understood the assignment. The situation was dire. The German pressure was just overwhelming. And Nivelle needed something that wasn't just a tactical order, but a spiritual one.
He needed a mantra.
He did. And he issued the command. On ne passe pas.
One does not pass.
No.
Or they shall not pass.
And it became the spine of the French defense. It was the anchor. And what's fascinating to me is how quickly it jumped from just a verbal order in the heat of battle to visual propaganda for civilians. I'm looking at this poster from 1918 by an artist, Maurice Newmont. Do you have that in front of you?
I do, yeah. It's the one in the show notes with the soldier on the ridge, right?
Yeah.
It looks so different from modern recruitment ads. It's not an action movie poster. He looks like a statue. He looks unmovable.
It's almost religious imagery, isn't it?
It is. Let me read the text because the language is incredibly dense. It's poetic, but also very dark. It says, "Twice I have stood and vanquished on the Marne. Brother civilian, the underhand offensive of white peace will attack you in turn, and like me, you must stand firm and vanquish."
There is so much to unpack in just those two sentences.
That term white peace, that's not something we really use anymore. What did that mean to a soldier in 1918?
So a white peace, or a peace without victory, was this idea of negotiating an end to the war, maybe leaving Germany with some of its gains, or at least not totally crushed.
I see.
To the French army, after losing hundreds of thousands of men in the mud, the idea of a negotiated peace felt like a betrayal. It felt like all that death was for nothing.
So the poster is saying, I held the line against the bullets. You civilians need to hold the line against the diplomats.
Precisely. It's framing the politician or the pacifist as just another version of the enemy. The poster also goes on to warn against Boche hypocrisy.
Boche, that being the slur for Germans at the time.
Right. It's dehumanizing but very effective propaganda. And the slogan, on ne passe pas, evolved right here. It wasn't just, don't let soldiers walk past this trench anymore. It became, don't let their ideas or their negotiations penetrate our resolve.
That's a key distinction. That's the first time it moves from physical territory to, psychological territory. But it wasn't just the French using this, was it? I saw a note here about the Romanian front that I found really surprising.
Yes, and this is so often overlooked in Western history books. The Battle of Manaidi in 1917. This was basically the Verdun of the East for the Romanian army. They were up against German Field Marshal von Mackensen, who was a terrifying figure at the time.
And the Romanians used a direct translation.
They did. Pe ținu se trece, one does not pass through here, or here, nobody passes.
It has that same defiant ring to it.
It served the exact same function. I mean, Romania was being squeezed off the map, quite literally, and this phrase became the anchor for their national identity during the war. It's proof that the sentiment, this absolute refusal to back down, is universal.
It doesn't matter what language. When your back is against the wall, the message is the same.
Exactly.
Speaking of universal, the research threw a curveball that I honestly was not expecting. We usually track this slogan from World War I onwards, right? Assuming Verdun is ground zero, but there's a precursor.
There is. If you really dig into the archives, and I mean deep into 19th century military records, you find the sentiment earlier. We have to go to Brazil.
The War of Canudos?
Right. This is a conflict in the late 1890s between the First Brazilian Republic and this group of settlers led by a religious mystic, Antonio Conselheiro. A very specific history that most people outside Brazil don't know. But there are records of the phrase, alto lá, daqui não passarás.
Which translates to, stop there, from here you shall not pass.
Exactly. Now, was General Nivelle in France reading Brazilian military history? Probably not. It's unlikely there's a direct link. But it just goes to show you that the line is a primal human concept, whether it's a mystic in the backlands of Brazil or a general in France. When you're defending your home, the language converges.
That is fascinating. It's like convergent evolution, but for language.
Yeah.
But here is where the story pivots. We leave the trenches of World War I. The war ends. The slogan should have retired, right? It should be in a museum on a dusty poster.
It should have. But then the 1930s happened. And this is where the phrase gets weaponized in a totally new way. We go back to France, 1934.
But this isn't war against Germany. This is French against French.
It is. The political atmosphere in Paris was toxic. You had the rise of the leagues, basically far-right nationalist paramilitary groups.
Okay.
They were rioting, trying to destabilize the parliament. It was very close to a civil war. And standing against them was Léon Blum, a prominent socialist leader.
And during a huge counter-demonstration, Blum resurrects the old war cry.
He yells to the crowd, "Ils ne passeront pas." They shall not pass. But notice the context shift here. He's not talking about invading Germans. He's talking about fellow French citizens who hold a different ideology.
That is a massive shift. It's no longer, we must protect the soil. It's, we must protect our political system.
It's the moment the slogan becomes the property of the left.
Right.
Before this, it was a nationalist military slogan, something a general would say. Blum turned it into an anti-fascist slogan. He was saying that fascism would not be allowed to seize power in France.
Which sets the stage perfectly for the main event, the version of the story everyone knows.
Spain.
The Spanish Civil War.
This is the crescendo. 1936. The Siege of Madrid. This is where the slogan becomes legendary. On one side, you have the Republican forces, a mix of socialists, communists, anarchists, international volunteers. On the other, the nationalists led by General Francisco Franco, backed by Hitler and Mussolini.
And the Republicans have a voice. Dolores Ibarruri Gomez.
La Pasionaria, the passion flower.
She's a legendary figure, a communist politician with this incredible fiery way of speaking.
And she delivers a radio broadcast that just changes history. The nationalist army is bearing down on Madrid. It looks like the end. The government is fleeing. And she screams into the microphone, "No pasarán."
It's electric. It's not an order from a general anymore. It's a cry from the people.
It galvanized the city. It wasn't just words. Men and women built barricades. They dug trenches in the cobblestone streets. They held Madrid for 2.5 years against a superior military force, largely fueled by that 3-word incantation. It became the definition of anti-fascist resistance.
But, and this is the tragic part of the deep dive, slogans don't actually stop bullets forever.
No, they don't. And this is where the story gets chilling. Because slogans don't exist in a vacuum. The enemy hears them too.
Franco was listening.
He was. And he waited. When Madrid finally fell in 1939, when the war was effectively over, Franco didn't just march in and declare victory. He issued a specific response. He declared, "Hemos pasado."
We have passed.
Or in the colloquial Spanish of the time, "Ya hemos pasado." We have already passed.
That is petty and devastating.
It's psychological warfare. He took their greatest symbol of hope, the thing they shouted while they were dying to defend their city, and he turned it into the punchline of their defeat. It effectively said, "Your words were empty, My tanks were real.
It highlights something we don't talk about enough. Words are weapons, but they can be captured just like artillery.
Absolutely. It was a deliberate attempt to humiliate the defeated side. But here's the resilience of the phrase. Franco took the city, and he took the slogan, but he couldn't kill the idea. Because while Madrid was falling, the phrase had already jumped the English Channel.
To London, the Battle of Cable Street.
October 1936. This is a fascinating moment in British history. You had Sir Oswald Mosley and his British Union of Fascists, the Black Shirts, and they wanted to march through the East End of London.
Which was a predominantly Jewish and Irish working-class neighborhood. That's a deliberate provocation.
It was an invasion. And the locals knew what was happening in Spain. They saw the connection between Mosley and Franco. So when they blocked the streets to stop Mosley's march, they didn't chant in English. They shouted, "No pasarán."
They used the Spanish, knowing exactly what it meant.
It connected their street fight in London to the siege in Madrid. It made them part of a global struggle. But, and this is a nuance I really love in the research, the British left added a second part to the slogan.
Oh, really? I missed that in the notes. What was it?
Sometimes, in their pamphlets and speeches, they would follow "No pasarán" with "Nosotros pasaremos."
We will pass.
Exactly. It changes the dynamic completely. No pasarán is defensive, it's hold the line. Nosotros pasaremos is offensive. It means we are coming for you. It signaled they didn't just want to stop fascism, they wanted to advance their own ideology.
That's a confident addition. So we've gone from French trenches to Spanish radio to London street brawls. But then World War II breaks out properly. Does the phrase go back to the military?
It comes full circle. We see it on the Maginot Line badges in France, which, frankly, is a bit ironic in hindsight.
Because the Germans didn't pass through the Maginot Line, they just drove around it, through Belgium.
Right. A static slogan for a static defense in a mobile war. Not a great fit. But there is one moment in WWII where the phrase regains its glory, and it involves a French-Canadian.
Major Paul Triquet. I remember reading this story.
Yes. The Royal 22E Regiment. The Vendus, Italy, December 1943. The Battle of Ortona.
I've read about Ortona. Journalists at the time called it Little Stalingrad. Just brutal house-to-house fighting.
Unbelievably brutal. They were blowing holes in walls to move between buildings because the streets were just kill zones. The tactic was called mouse holing.
Right.
And Triquet's there with his company. They're cut off, ammunition is low, and they're facing elite German paratroopers. The situation is strikingly similar to Verdun in 1916. So what does Triquet do?
He reaches back into the history books.
He rallies his men by shouting, "Ils ne passeront pas." He uses Nivelle's original French phrasing.
And it worked.
It worked. They held the objective. Triquet won the Victoria Cross. It shows that for a francophone soldier, even one from Canada, those words are like a spell. You say them, and you summon the ghosts of Verdun to stand next to you.
It's the ultimate shorthand for, we die here rather than move back.
It is. It connects the soldier to a whole lineage of resistance.
So fast forward, the world wars end. The Cold War heats up, and the phrase travels again, this time to the jungles of Central America.
The 1980s, Nicaragua, the Sandinista Revolution.
Now, for listeners who might be a bit fuzzy on 80s geopolitics, the Sandinistas were the socialist revolutionaries who overthrew the Somoza dictatorship.
And then fought against the U.S.-backed Contras.
Right.
And "No pasarán" became the defining slogan of the Sandinista government. There was even a famous documentary in 1984 titled "Nicaragua No Pasarán."
Why does that phrase resonate there? I mean, it's a long way from the Marne.
Because the sentiment fits the anti-imperialist narrative perfectly. Whether it's Germans invading France or what they saw as Yankee imperialism via the Contras, the dynamic is the same. A large, powerful force trying to enter, and a smaller, determined force refusing to yield.
It's almost like the phrase sheds its original context and just keeps the emotional core.
It becomes a template. Fill in the blank for who they are.
Which brings us right up to the present day. And I mean literally now, because I was surprised to see this in the notes regarding the war in Ukraine.
This is the most recent entry in the biography of this slogan. We're looking at the 155th Mechanized Brigade of the Ukrainian Army.
And they are using the French slogan.
They are. But there's a very practical link here. This isn't just random history nerds picking a cool phrase. This brigade was recently trained and equipped by France.
Ah, so they're driving French vehicles, wearing French-supplied kit.
And absorbing French military culture. They adopted the motto, "On ne passe pas" in French.
That is. It's almost haunting. You have a slogan born in the trench warfare of 1916 being used in the trench warfare of Eastern Europe in 2024.
It speaks to the cyclical nature of war. Technology changes. We have drones, we have HIMARS, we have satellites. But the fundamental experience of an infantryman holding a muddy hole in the ground while an enemy tries to kill him, that has not changed in a century. And clearly, the language they need to get through that hasn't changed either.
It's the verbal barrier.
It is. It connects the 19-year-old Ukrainian conscript to the poilu at Verdun and the volunteer in Madrid. It's a lineage. It tells them, you are not alone in this feeling.
So let's just look at the map we've drawn. Verdun to Brazil, the streets of Paris to the ruins of Madrid, the east end of London to the jungles of Nicaragua, and finally, the front lines of Ukraine.
It's a phrase that refuses to retire. As long as there's an us defending a home and a them trying to take it, someone, somewhere will say, they shall not pass.
It really changes how you hear it. It's not just a poster slogan, it's a survival mechanism.
It is. But, and here is the thought that kept me up last night while researching this.
Go on, I love a good existential crisis to end the deep dive.
We've been talking about holding the line, physical lines, trenches, rivers, city limits. The slogan relies on the idea that there's a barrier you can defend, a place where you can physically stand and say, stop.
Right. Physical geography.
But look at modern conflict. We live in an era of hybrid warfare, cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, election interference. The enemy doesn't always come with a tank you can see.
They come through the fiber optic cables, through the servers.
Exactly. So the question I want to leave with you is this. In a world where borders are invisible and conflict is digital, does the concept of they shall not pass still work?
That's a tough one. Can you hold a line that doesn't physically exist?
Or has holding the line become purely symbolic? When the enemy can be inside your power grid or your social media feed without ever crossing a physical border, maybe we need a new slogan. Or maybe we just need to figure out what the line even looks like now.
That is a provocative thought to end on. It makes you wonder if our language has caught up to our reality.
I don't think it has yet.
Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. We hope you look at those old propaganda posters a little differently now.
Stay curious.
We'll catch you in the next deep dive.